Okay, Jerome, you had the first item.
Yeah, so I've added engineers and engineering managers from each fulfillment group. So from the utilization, purchase, and license groups to be part of this working group. Some of those team members are based in Europe, other ones are based in APAC. So just to call out that we will probably need to be async friendly with our discussions so that they can contribute to architectural decisions and other types of decisions.
Okay, yeah, and I was just going to follow up and say if there's a better time for the new folks, we can adjust as needed.
I think they're going to be spread across all time zones. It's going to be hard to get everyone in the same room at the same time. But
okay.
Yeah.
And then the next one as well.
Yeah. So for number 2, I just wanted to call out that we started doing our quarterly subscription reconciliation in November, and we started to get back some of the data. I've linked back to a cloud licensing e-group deck, which we'll cover later on today. But if you look at slide 4, you'll actually see some of the results. And in the results, there are some bugs when we did the quarterly subscription reconciliation. The one that I wanted to point out were some bugs to do with Zuora data. So we ended up skipping some reconciliations because there's inconsistencies between Zuora and customers.dot. And I think this just points out the need for this purchasing reliability working group to be able to dive into some of these problems. So some of the problems that we saw were in customers.dot where we didn't have a Zuora subscription, and therefore we weren't able to look up the Zuora subscription, and therefore we weren't able to actually do the subscription reconciliation. So just flagging that here.
And like what happens in the failure case, just so that I can be enlightened on that?
We just skip the reconciliation. So
how does that eventually get remediated?
We have reconciliations done on a quarterly basis. So we have reconciliations done on a regular basis. So whenever they're up for another reconciliation, that's where it will get remediated.
Okay.
So we're currently just skipping those or deferring those.
Got it. And to shortcut that one, is there any bad data in Zuora, or it's all just skipped if it's a no-go? Meaning, are we doing any remediations to Zuora data?
Not at this point. I think what we want to do with this working group is really define what the interactions between customers.dot and Zuora should look like, identify any sort of gaps there are, and then start resyncing data or making any patches or addressing each one of those cases. So we haven't been addressing them yet. We've just simply been skipping them.
And it looked like the accuracy of the max seat count has also been addressed, but part of that is like cleaning up old data too.
Yeah, the accuracy of max seat counts, that's a separate issue that this working group probably doesn't need to get involved with, but the basic idea was we needed to relook at our logic for max seat counts. Sometimes there was old data that was lingering around, which was or old subscriptions that was lingering around, which was making us count incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, happy to get this quarterly subscription reconciliation rollout done and have some successes in it and discover some bugs that we need to fix.
I just put in here, let's just add Christopher Nelson to this. I'll make sure that I tell him that he can get line of sight to any of the Zuora issues that come up. I know the team has already opened up issues, but it'll just be good for him to be part of this.
And another thing I want to understand real quick is like when we defer our like QSR, do we effectively lose the revenue that we would have had for that quarter?
Yes, because whenever we actually do the QSR, we're charging for that the overage. We don't have a great idea of the sizing of that right now, but the short answer is yes.
And the percentages in slide 4 are, that'd be the percentage of, like, these counts are like the number of customers, like the number of subscriptions?
Yes.
Okay.
Drobe, do I have it right, looking back to when we designed this last year, if in the event that a bunch of the quarterly reconciles fail and that customer comes back, as long as they have a Zora subscription or we get one for them, they would just fall into the in arrears old school true up process. Is that still true?
I believe so.
Right.
Jack,
Okay.
that's how I understood it when Justin, it's something that we should definitely confirm with Justin. Yep. And make sure, so we're capturing that revenue, even if it's, you know, defaulted to annual true up as opposed to quarterly.
And I know one of the value of that happening is that while we go through these iterations and bumps, if there is a miss, we will eventually recoup that. Not as good as quarterly reconciles would be, but we'd still get there. So yes, agree. Let's make sure that's what's going to happen.
Oh, because true ups are annual. I see. So we don't lose the revenue. It's deferred. Okay.
It's deferred. But it kind of goes against what we're trying to get to as far as PSR. Let's definitely check with Justin. Also, I know that Justin is officially back now. I think he would be also another person we would want to add to this working group. Have you talked to him, Jerome, at all?
I have. So yes, Justin came back from paternity leave yesterday. He is now, I think, Senior Director of Pricing Monetization, or he's moved into I guess a higher up role with fulfillment, growth, and product intelligence and pricing all reporting to him. So he's trying to operate at that level. He's asked me in the interim to continue as group product manager for fulfillment. We're still hashing out all of the details there, but we should have more clear roles and responsibilities pretty soon. He's just come back yesterday, so I'll provide an update to this group in our next meeting.
Anybody have anything else on 2? Okay, on 3, I was just looking for an update on the GCP migration. Jerome answered this offline, but just to clarify, the production setup did occur last month. Like, we have a production ready instance on GCP, and we're just doing essentially QA testing on that this month, right? But still on track for the end of January rollout.
We're on track. What we originally wanted to do was have an exact mirror of production, but what we've gone with instead is a database dump sort of mechanism. So one of the things that we were going to do was actually have Azure and GCP running in parallel, and the data being sort of sent to both environments at the same time, so that we could see both of them acting one-to-one. What we've done instead, and this is just because it'd be easier to set up, is we've just gone with a database dump. So I think in the last couple of weeks of December, what we did is we dumped our Azure production database, and then we've now re-uploaded into GCP, and we're performing all the various tests there. The current status of this is we're about 81% done on the Azure to GCP migration. I've listed out a timeline here. There's a few key things to pay attention to over the next couple of weeks. We now have infrastructure squad beginning on this. And that squad is helping us with a production readiness review, which is basically having the development team where we've built a lot of this infrastructure actually do a handoff over to the infrastructure team so that they can operate this on a 24/7 on-call schedule. And then secondly is to have infrastructure set up monitoring, which their monitoring stack. Currently, we have pretty limited monitoring on Azure, which is basically a few different health checks that we had James set up. And we are going to go live with those same checks on GCP, but there's this whole other suite of monitoring that we'd like, monitoring and observability that we'd like to get to. And that's some of the work that, that the infrastructure team would start on. We have a cutover date currently set for, it was January 22nd, but we're going to do it on the 23rd instead, which I believe is Sunday. So we're going to try to do the cutover then, and we're getting the appropriate approvals for that. And then we're hoping to close out the engineering allocation slowly after that, and then move towards a longer term operating model with SLO actually established for customers.
And is there any risk of like webhook failures or something like that not being processed during the migration?
I see James, you're on the call. I'm not sure if you're able to speak to that. My understanding is we will have a brief outage of maybe like 10 minutes or maybe up to an hour where we'll have a scheduled window where we would pause these jobs and then resume them.
Okay.
But
and webhooks they get retried for like days, right? So that shouldn't be a problem.
That's right. Yeah, we will pause and then resume once we have the new server up and running.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions on the Azure to GCP migration?
Just thank you for the January 23rd date. Is there going to be, because obviously that could impact customers there, or is part of me, is the front end of customers dot coming down?
It is the whole customers dot application.
Got it. Is there some vein in there? I have not had time to review that epic to just get that out to the field teams, and you know, I bet there'd be banners. Just making sure that everyone knows that that's coming.
We're working through that right now. So far, what we're doing is we're going to schedule it on Sunday, which is a low traffic day. And we will be updating our status page. We don't think that we need to email all of our customers to notify them of a 1 hour outage. But some of the other things which we're needing to do is actually get sign-offs for this. So sign-offs on the through the engineering leadership side. But also to get into contact with all of the different stakeholders cross-functionally, so such as yourself. We've surfaced this, I think, before you returned back, Jack, but this is we're now at the point where it's actually going to happen in a few weeks. So we'll mobilize.
Yeah. As long as the front end is going down with it, so it's not like we're dropping transactions on the floor. That makes me, it's just nothing's happening. That's better than some things happening in my mind. Cool. I could actually help Jerome there. I'll bring that over to David Summers and say, hey, what's your enablement plan for this? It's not a big deal, but we should still talk about it.
Definitely. I think so far we've looped in support and we're just getting to the sales side now.
Jerome, you're gonna probably want some Zora resource standby, I would imagine. Someone like Jess Salcido available. Is she made aware already?
Not yet, but we will loop her in. I'll link over to the issue that James is currently working on to get the sign-offs and just notify everyone of the rollout. I think it's actually in under 2D under status. Begin to prepare for cutover. and getting sign-offs. I'll tag you in the comment there.
Thanks, Joe.
Anything else on 3? We're good to move on to 4?
James, did I miss anything? I think you've got a lot more details than I do. Yeah.
I think that's everything. I think there's a beta issue actually where we have the sign-offs and everything. I will post to that.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, on 4, I don't know how relevant it is to this working group, but I just wanted to make sure that fulfillment wasn't like being put on the hook for doing a bunch of complicated roll up for the enforcing the storage limits. So I couldn't tell based on the linked issue, like what sort of artifact types are in scope for the like initial free tier, like the F iterations. Does anybody know offhand? Like, is this just repository size limits? Does it include the container registry? Does it include package registries, that sort of stuff?
I think that probably, yeah, I think this is probably out of scope for this purchasing reliability working group, but what I can do is probably connect you with either Amanda or Donique, which are the PMs on the fulfillment side that are driving this. And they are working closely with, I believe, Kenny Johnson's team, which is actually trying to do the roll-ups for each of these different areas where it's wherever the storage is.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I was mainly coming at it from the perspective of like based on what I know about how difficult it would be to roll all this stuff up properly right now, that we weren't introducing like other complexity on top of like our existing reliability concerns. Because if we're not like transparent about what the storage limits are and like it's not obvious how it's being calculated, then I think people would perceive that as either unfair or that it was like flaky on our end. You know what I mean?
I think where these might intersect is, so we have the SaaS free user efficiency initiative, right? Where we're putting limits on storage, transfer, etc. I think understanding, so fulfillment's involvement is not so much the computation which happens in the various cloud providers, or that happens in the cloud infrastructure, but being able to just surface it to our users and being able to enforce it with our users. So we're sort of on the, I'd say more on the edge of it, whereas we have, I believe, Kenny's team doing the bulk of the heavy lifting. I think the infrastructure is mostly separated. I think we're mostly going to be isolated from it.
Okay.
But yeah, we can do a deeper dive there. We're just getting up to speed on that.
No, that's the main thing that I wanted to make sure of. You're basically expecting that they have an API for you that's just going to give you a number, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had for 4. Jack, you got 5?
Yep. I got to watch the video of the last time this group met, was very excited about the change management aspect. Just wanted to raise 2 recent examples of a change that was made in Customers Dot where it changes the flow down to Salesforce. And the first time we hear about it is someone on the order management team saying, I'm either missing data or there's, in this case, extra data, which is of course not great when there's money attached to those duplicates. We have to clean those up very quickly. What is the vein we should be talking in terms of change management of this ecosystem? Would love to either do a pass around on that or see what this group thinks.
I can comment on just my viewpoint. I think that we're going to be under higher scrutiny when it comes to audits going on right now. So we have IT general compute controls as part of our SOX audit. And this is definitely bordering, this particular change is bordering on is this going to be in scope from a financial perspective? I could see us making an argument one way or the other. But I think your point really, Jack, is like, what is how good are we at change management in general and communicating to everybody? So I do think from the perspective of, can we use this particular change as one of the standards that we start to operate at so that all stakeholders, I think Jerome is spot on by getting everyone involved, making sure it's documented so that if someone, KPMG decided they wanted to take a look at this and say, did you get all the sign-offs? Did you appropriately test everything? We'd be able to do that. We are going to have to get better about this environment going forward, or it will bite us.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my understanding is that this is like the primary motivation behind that platypus project, right? Like if that is the integration point, then both parties effectively have to agree on the change to the contractor behavior before it can be rolled out to all three systems.
Totally in agreement. One could argue this is just core infrastructure, right? So it doesn't necessarily fall into SOC scope. I think the things that Jack is pointing out could very easily fall into that. But yes, if we had a standard way of that integration where we can focus our change management around that could help a lot. So I think as we move forward, we can improve in that area.
I would also, I guess, ask for an iterative approach on even just more alerting, like we said, and saying this change is coming. And here's why we made the change. And the first one, I'm even trying, it talks about Salesforce account finding. I was completely unaware of this. So my team either could have jumped in and helped. We definitely could have tested. So just the more bringing in the different teams, the better. And we don't need to rethink change management, just talk to each other. We'll go a long way.
And in the meantime, Jerome, maybe it makes sense to leverage this working group to facilitate that until we have something else in place.
Jerome, might also, a good person to talk to would be Alex Westbrook, because she's in the middle of doing our initial change management ITGC controls right now with Crow and internal audit and Julia Lake's team. So we have an approach here. So if you wanted to get a sense of like how we're focused on the Zora pieces specifically, and Jessica Salcedo reports into Alex Westbrook, that might be a good just kind of overview of how we're handling it on the corporate enterprise system side. Thank you, Jerome.
I think I definitely think our teams need to try to over communicate during this time. I think we have each of our teams with our respective systems, and we're making changes in each of those. So trying to find ways which we can continue iteratively improving our systems while keeping each of the other teams in loop. I think ultimately what we're going to need, though, is we need our data models, touch points, and integrations across all the different services defined. And then once we have that defined, then it's really easy to sort of draw boundaries in terms of any time, a change happens in this system, then that triggers off change management, a change management process. I think that's probably the longer term solve, but I think in the interim, it's probably leaning on over communication.
And yeah, I don't really have context on the two changes that Jack linked to, but like, was this like predictable, or was it like subtle? Was it a subtle thing?
Both of these were, it just took the diligence of the order management team to catch these problems and then fix them. I had a line on there, I took it out, which is, I don't know if this working group is a great place to talk about every bug we find in this integration. I wanted to concentrate just on the broader strategic, like how we manage all the changes, because a lot
totally
goes on in this lane.
Yeah. And I didn't mean like to communicate bugs after they happened. I just meant like, since this is already weekly, it might be a good opportunity to communicate that we have changes, potentially breaking changes coming in the next release or what have you.
Sure. If fulfillment normally releases quicker than that, or at least they did, I'll default to Jerome there. But one of the things in this vein, thinking ahead, is we have a lot of components we put out, such as quarterly reconciles. They're very in their infancy. So there's a lot of things we haven't seen. So I just want to make sure that we've got really quick communication, because we can be, oh no, we need to change something quickly for those.
Sure.
So it's like, now we're not only worried about the changes, we're still dealing with the changes we made last year, right? And on top of the changes we got going on now. Yeah. So yes.
I know we're at time, but I do want to just quickly point out the level of communication has improved immensely from my perspective. And it's not just fulfillment in the direction of go-to-market systems like Salesforce or billing systems. It's also the other way, right? So we also need to communicate. We're looking at orders and ramps, and we've got to work with Jerome and that team. So it's a two-way street, 100%.
We've definitely had changes even upstream from us, from Salesforce and Zuora trickle down. So yeah.
Could not agree more. It goes both ways.
All right. I think that wraps it up for this week. I appreciate the discussion. I'll see you guys next time.